And we've been brought really far along with all the data stuff that we've been talking about, data science, data operations. Everybody is doing so much to make our data ready for us, right? But what does it really mean? Like, if you take away all the technical aspects of it, like for a marketer, what does data readiness mean? So the simplest example that I could come up with was like 10 years ago, maybe 12 years ago, we all had like large MP3 collections. At least I had a huge MP3 collection. And then the iPod comes out. And then you copy all your music onto the iPod. And then what happens? No artist names. Everybody's called unknown artist. Everybody's called various artists. No albums, right? That to me was data readiness. Like, if you don't take time to make your data clean and tagged and organized, you can't get value from it, right? So that's what I want us to start thinking about. Everybody, Brandon just talked so much about all the stages of how well your data is organized. But what happens after that? That's what I want to think about with you guys. So 9 levels, is it blurry? 9 levels of data readiness, a lot of framework processes. Hopefully there are a lot of people in your life with data science and data operations that are talking about this stuff, because I'm not going to talk about it right now. I'm a marketer, as are many of us, right? And what I care about is customer data. Demographic, transactional, behavioral, interaction. What do we do with it? That is what matters. Everybody talks about data readiness. Everybody wants actionable insights. Everybody wants a system that you can connect all channels at all times. But how do you take advantage of that, right? That's what I want to talk about. As an organization, as a group of marketers, what can we do when our data is ready? So you start looking into a concept like data readiness, and the terms that come up are data availability, hygiene, maturity, integrity, right? These are all concepts that we all understand from data. But as a marketer, I want you guys to take 2 aspects of these terms and just think about them. First one, they all tend to be binary. Data is available, not available. It's clean, it's not clean. It has integrity, doesn't have integrity. Well, that's not really true, right? If you go to a doctor and the doctor says, you're great, you're fit, everything's great, doesn't mean you can go home and forget about it. Yesterday we had a presentation from the rank group. She was talking about you can't set it and forget it. So that's what I want to tell you guys. This is concept. Data readiness is a continuum. And you have to keep working to keep it that way. Just because your data is ready today doesn't mean it's going to be ready 2 years from now. Just because it's available today doesn't mean it's going to be available. You have to keep it that way, right? You have to work at it. And the second part of it is all these terms, data readiness, availability, they talk about the data. But data is ready by default, right? When you know a piece of information, you can act on it. It's everything that we do to the data that makes it either not ready or not available or unstructured. So the question I want all of us to think about is, are you ready to leverage your data? What if your data sciences team creates the best data infrastructure that you could have, right? Current, modern, flexible, then what? Who takes action on that stuff? So that's what I want us to think about. Data readiness really is a process. It's a system. It's a set of habits. It's a culture. It's a mindset. If there's one thing that you take from this presentation today, let it be this, right? Data readiness is a mindset. Especially as a marketing organization, if you want to make the most of your data, you have to build an organization around it. Otherwise, it's not going to happen, right? The value of the data is not going to get unlocked unless you create an organization that can actually unlock that value. So let's talk about some forces and some things that are acting on all of us right now as consumers, as shoppers, as marketers. First one, everything is unlimited, right? Unlimited data, unlimited streaming, unlimited storage. We have 120 new LinkedIn registrations every minute. All of them sending us invites, right? Whether we know them or not, how many invites are we getting every minute? It's driving me crazy. $260,000 spent on Amazon every minute. It's no surprise that Jeff Bezos is almost worth $100 billion. 23 million WhatsApp messages a minute. 20 million of those from my family alone. We are spending all our free time with technology right now. And all this stuff, these are interactions. This is behavioral data. This is all the stuff we keep saying we want to collect, right? So that's the second part. Every action is tracked. And it's not just tracked by one company. If you go to any website and look at the trackers, you'll see 35, 40, 50 trackers on some websites. And each of those trackers is tracking every action you do on that website, right? So now, that is what's driving the information created. So I had to Google this. 1 zettabyte is 1 trillion gigabytes. Let that sit in your head for 1 second. 1 trillion, 12 zeros, right? Try writing 12 zeros. If you don't put the commas, you have to actually count to make sure you wrote 12 zeros. 12 zeros, that's like double the number of rings that Michael Jordan has. It's huge, right? And 2017, we are at 20 zettabytes. They are predicting in 8 years, we're going to be at 163. Just imagine that rate of growth. This is what Jeff was talking about yesterday. 75 billion devices coming online, right, in 8 years. That's what it's doing to all this data. And when you have so much data, what happens? You start building habits and behaviors that go along with this. So one of the things that's happened is organization is unnecessary now. How many people here have to take 75 photos of a kid before they look at you and smile and have the eyes open, right? It's crazy. And then what do you do with those photos? Nothing. They just sit there. In fact, Google is telling me which is the best photo. I don't even bother to go and look at all the other photos now. And the AI, the search, voice, all the file structures, everything is evolving so we don't have to organize our data. It's teaching us all these bad habits because we don't have to anymore. Who knows how many files you have now at home? How many videos are you storing? Does anybody know? No, because we don't care. Storage is not a factor anymore. And then the last force is metrics are completely commoditized, right? Metrics are telling us when we should stand up, when we should drink water, how many steps we should walk every day. The watch is even telling you if you slept well yesterday. Can't you figure that out on your own? Your watch has to tell you, you got good sleep last night. Well done, right? That's the world we live in now. But there's a tension here. You know, Shankar was talking yesterday about the tension that we want unlimited access to technology, and we want these amazing tools, but we don't want to give up our privacy. That's a tension. This is the same thing, right? We don't have to work for these metrics. You buy the watch, you put it on your hand, you install the app, boom, you got these metrics. We don't have to work for them at all. They just show up, but we know how to act on them, right? So as just inherent, as a species now, we are getting used to acting on actionable insights if someone gives it to you, to metrics. If they feel useful, you can take action on those things. But then you go to an organization, and then that doesn't feel to carry through. So why does that happen? So first, let's talk about what a data-ready marketing organization looks like. And I have to say, yesterday with Shaw and Sapien Razorfish, I feel like that's a great example of a data-ready marketing organization. In fact, if you guys could come back in 2 years and tell us how you're doing, that would be amazing. That was very inspiring for me, right? So these are like 3 stages, very typical. I'm sure everybody knows these, right? Mass communications, TV, direct mail, radio ads, these things are mass communications, same for everybody, usually single channel. I'm using one-to-one very, very loosely. I don't mean personalization, that is, yes, the end goal, but I mean more segmentation, micro-targeting, things like that. And normally, this is what it takes. If the whole organization gets behind it, if you want true segmented, intelligent marketing across all channels, that takes a very long time. It takes a lot of focus and commitment and dedication. It doesn't just happen. And that's why I was so inspired by the Shaw presentation yesterday, because what they've done in 8 months is pretty impressive. But again, it's limited. It's to a few number of customers, it's few channels, and it will be amazing to see how it grows. But you can get there. And if you're not doing it, I promise you your competitors are doing it right now. That's what we have to think about. These organizations exist. These organizations are getting created every day. And if you don't do it, your competitors are going to do it. And we're at a Telium conference, right? So we all understand what a typical structure is to do this. You need to know who your customer is. You need to have a way to enrich that data and track it and do identity resolution. And then you need propensity profiles so that you can target. And Chris Slovak yesterday was talking about moments. When you know the moment, you can act on it. But again, it's about having an organization that's ready to take action on these moments, right? So I'm not going to spend time on this because we are standing at this conference because we all understand the value of this kind of infrastructure. I want to talk about what prevents us from getting here. So 99% people believe data is critical to success. I'm sure nobody will argue with me about this. The Economist last year said the data is our most valuable resource. That makes sense. But again, it's like it's getting a comp on your home. Your home is worth $4 million. Well, until somebody makes you an offer, it's not worth $4 million. So yes, your data is your most critical asset, but till you figure out how to use it, it's not actually giving you any value, right? So even though 99% believe data is critical to success, 62% are unable to turn it into insights or action. That number feels very high. I mean, we just listened to Brandon talking about analytics. That was amazing. And that, if you go down that road, you're going to produce a lot of insights. But then what are you going to do with those insights? That's where the value shows up, right? So what are some ways that you could drive your organization towards this data-ready marketing future that we all want? I'm going to give you 3 concepts, right? And you could take these concepts with you and see if this makes a difference. So first one is reporting is not analytics. Both are very important. Both have a place, but it's not the same thing. And let me show you the difference. Reporting is really designed to answer the question, how are we doing, right? The progress, it's keeping me informed, it's helping me run my business, but it really tends to be more tactical, short-term, and role-specific or department-specific or business group-specific. Analytics is designed to answer the question, what did we learn? Maria yesterday in the Microsoft session was talking about she wants business stakeholders to bring her questions so she can answer them with her data, right? That's what analytics is. It helps you focus on insights and takeaways. It helps you learn why things are working. So that's how I sort of break this down in my head. Reporting is, did it work? And analytics is, why did it work? Or what worked? Or what didn't work? That's the sort of difference. And if you're spending time on the left side, I got to remember which is right and left, then you start understanding how you can change your business. You don't want to do the same thing over and over again. But once you understand what worked in your campaign, then you can repeat that or make it better. Once you understand what didn't work, you can fix it, right? So example, this is a media weekly transactions report for a hotel client. And in hotels, the #1 business goal is occupancy rate, right? So this is, in the week of 2nd of April, we had $44,000 in hotel room bookings. Week of 4/9, we had $46,000. But this doesn't tell us when the nights are for, what are we doing with those nights? How am I driving occupancy, which is what matters? So if you look at the data a different way, if you add some more channels into it, then you can start really mapping out when are people arriving based on the week that they booked. So the insights we were able to grab from this was 3 weeks is the sweet spot for the booking window. So if you tell me now that last week of April, my occupancy rates are looking low, I want to drive occupancy in last week of April, we should run the campaigns this week, next week, not the week of last week of April, because people are not usually booking for that same week, right? Same thing for holidays. We don't want to start 6-8 months out. We want to start 3 months out. But this information can only come when you think about it that way. So let me give you a framework that you can take for all the reporting and analytics activities you have. Tactical, strategic, repeating, ad hoc, right? Makes sense? And then you can take all the types of reports and analysis that might be happening. These are just obviously some examples. And you can map them to this. And then what? And then, as you can imagine, we have to move up and to the left. And we're not saying minimize the time spent in repeating and tactical because it's not important. It is important. But it can be automated. It can be streamlined. You spend less time there because you get more value for your time in the strategic box. The ROI modeling will give you much more information and much more actionable information than your website performance report. And if something is strategic and ad hoc and is really, really useful, then try and integrate that into your regular process. If it's very expensive and you can't do it often, then catalog it so that other people can use it. But figure out how you can take all your effort and start moving it to the top right quadrant, right? And that's where you invest your time and energy. That's where you integrate other data silos, integrate other organizations, make those report and analytics activities bigger so that you get more from them. You get insights, right? So that's the second concept. Now you have insights. How do you operationalize them? Now, this is the tricky part. This word insights, I feel, is starting to get overused. It shows up everywhere. Everybody wants actionable insights. But what does an insight mean? Can you guys think about exactly what an insight means? The best definition I was able to get from our strategy lead was an insight makes you think differently about your problem or solution. Otherwise, it's just an observation. So think about that for a second. Once you know an insight, you probably won't look at that problem the same way, or you won't try to fix it the same way. It will force you to change your approach because you know something about it now, and you want to treat it differently. So let me give you examples. 7% drop-off in form completion with every additional required field. That is a really powerful insight, but it is tactical because it applies just to a form in a website or a mobile form. I can't use it on a TV spot. I can't use it in my radio. So it's non-transferable. And it's local and channel specific, but it's still very useful and powerful. On the other hand, second-generation Hispanic customers don't want to be marketed to in Spanish. That is a very, very universal insight. I could use that in radio, in TV, in direct mail, everywhere. Anywhere that I'm engaging those customers, that insight becomes relevant. So that's a strategic insight. It's universal. It's global. So we get these kinds of insights from all our analysis work, but then what, right? The biggest issue with insights today is they're fleeting. They get forgotten. You do one campaign, you find an amazing insight, the campaign's very successful. Next effort comes around, the team is different, the client has changed, your creative director is different, and the insights are gone. Why should insights be people-specific? If you are going to become an organization that can take action on insights, insights need to be operational, they need to be institutionalized, right? That's what you got to figure out. You already getting all these amazing processes in place to make your data enterprise ready. Now you got to think about that for your insights too. What are you doing with all the insights that you're getting? And the way to operationalize them is simple. It's a central repository. But the complex part is getting everybody to use that repository. Forcing process, forcing discipline, forcing commitment is when these things start to happen, right? None of these things are easy. I wish there were easy answers, but they're really not. You have to commit to this stuff, otherwise it's not going to pay off. And what does it take to get there? It takes true alignment across all your departments. Yesterday, I can't remember, I think it was from the rank group, they were talking about getting legal and HR and finance and everybody on board. I didn't write all those names, but there is no customer experience goal today that you can deliver without technology and data working with you. The days that customer experience could operate on their own are gone. So when I started my career, websites used to live in the IT group. And there was always a constant battle with marketing and IT. Now, pretty much every single client, the websites live with the marketing group. But the CTO and the CMO are becoming very closely aligned. And CIO and CDO have to be with them. And in fact, yesterday Jeff talked about the CXO. All these roles better be best friends and all have to be marching in the exact same direction, otherwise you're not going to hit your goals. You're not going to hit your technology goals if you don't have data and customer experience supporting you either. And same thing for data. If you're buying MarTech tools, and if you're investing in a data infrastructure, but you're not aligned with customer experience, you're not going to deliver those goals. Brandon was just talking about requirements. Well, all three have to give requirements to each other. These departments need to be connected at the hip if you're going to deliver your vision for amazing marketing. So far, so good? Last concept. Putting the action in actionable, right? This is what this is where it really comes down to. You've got the insights, you've got a process, you've got your data organized. Now what? Now what do we do, right? So I'm going to give you a couple of examples. We used to do media for Radio City Christmas Spectacular and the Rockets. And the audience target that we were given across the board was cultured moms. For media, for creative, for targeting, everything, it was cultured moms. Now, one habit that we have that we put in place is whenever something is in flight, we always want to figure out very quickly why it is working. Just because it's hitting our goals is not enough. We need to understand, what did we get right? Was it a fluke? Or did our strategy actually work? And when you do that, you start to uncover things. So 4 weeks in, we figured out that the group tickets or the family packages were being bought by the dads and not the moms. Once we understood this, we went to the client. They were all on board. We changed the creative. We changed the media tactics. We changed the targeting for the group and family plans. And we were able to change the course of the campaign. But it doesn't always work like that, right? So another example is we're doing 4K marketing right now. And we're making a big deal about the entire catalog. Movies, nature, sports. We have the best catalog. Please come join us for 4K. But what we found a few weeks in is that the only thing driving the subscriptions is the live sports. Now, we are not able to make the change this time because the campaign had very aggressive short-term goals, and the entire budget was spent getting the campaign to market. And we knew that when we were doing it. We all understood that if we learned something, we wouldn't be able to fix it. But now we have to wait 4 months and know that we have creative out there and targeting out there that's not going to perform because we didn't plan for this. And that's really what it comes down to, is how do you create an organization that can take swift action on these insights, right? What does it take for all of you to actually get an insight and then do something with it? What does it take for the whole organization to be behind that? And again, I wish it was simple, is planning. Planning, planning, planning. And org alignment is going to be number one, because the example that came to my mind was about 10 years ago, it didn't matter, or maybe 15, it did not matter if everybody understood how a CMS worked. It didn't matter if you understood what the technology worked. If you knew what you wanted on your website, you would tell the technology team, they would go figure it out, and you would get what you got. And you would either accept it or you would complain about it. That was the day. You didn't truly have to understand the technology. Fast forward 5 or 6 years from then, now people are having to understand the technology. Fast forward another 5 years, you're having to understand all the MarTech tools you're having to work with. That was not the case back then. And now data has become this other layer. You need to understand what data is available to you. You need to understand what you can do with that data. You need to understand how that data is going to become insights, and then when are you going to take action on those insights. Those things don't just happen magically, right? We want them to. Everybody wants right message, right place, right time, but you have to work to make that happen. The data alone is not going to take you there. Training is something that gets forgotten the most. Yesterday, we had Kerry from Rank Group saying, spend double the time on training than you do on getting the platform set up. I would say that's the minimum. If you don't teach your teams how to use the tools you're investing in, then why are you investing in those tools? Who is going to use those tools if you don't teach anybody how to use them, right? That's what unlocks the value of your data, is training and planning. You need to be ready to understand when you're going to optimize. You need to be ready to understand which KPIs are long-term, which are short-term. You need to have budget and time planned into your whole effort to course correct. These things all take time and money. It's very easy to forget. But if you put it all together, the output can be pretty amazing. So I don't know if you guys remember this campaign from last year. I was actually looking at this Boozy Brunch playlist. It is all songs about alcohol. So I feel like these people might have been having some midlife crisis. I'm not sure exactly what they were doing. But this was pretty powerful. Only Spotify can tell you something like this, right? And now Netflix is trying to copy them, but this is data that only Spotify has. This is a story that only Spotify can tell us. And it's very interesting because it's a music listening habit that we get excited about. They did this for Gingers. I bet you the creative person here was Ginger, but Shape of You, they wanted to congratulate that song. Now, they didn't just do this as general billboards. They had targeted students. They built custom websites for all artists. Every major artist on Spotify got this custom website. That website scrolls down 7 pages. It shows them all their popular songs, albums, who was listening, when they were listening, on what devices they were listening, how many times they were listening. It helps the artist understand what music is working. They were doing it for every one of the subscribers. This is my rap report. And I listen to soundtracks at work, and I'm kind of surprised Pitch Perfect didn't make it in here, so my goal for 2018 is to have Pitch Perfect on here. But this is amazing, right? This is when the whole organization decided, we have data, we're going to make use of that data, and we're going to do something with it that only we can do. And that is the real value. The reason why people are saying data is the most valuable asset or resource that we have is because your data is your competitive advantage. Only you have the data you have about your customers. You know, AJ yesterday was talking about first-party data. That is the real power of platforms like Helium, right? Is first-party data. And if you're not going to spend time learning from your first-party data, your competitors are going to learn from theirs, and they're going to beat you at your game. So you have to commit to an organization that can take value from all the data investment that you're making. Otherwise, it's not going to pay off. So in closing, I'm going to give you 3 questions, sort of like a mini exercise that you could do, and see if your organization is moving beyond just getting a good data infrastructure in place. First one, who are your top 5 customer segments? No qualification. Whatever your reason, who are your top 5 customer segments, and why are they your top 5 customer segments? If you can answer that question comfortably and feel good about the answer, then we move to the next question. How do you organize your data about them? Why is it organized this way? Is it intentional or is it organic? And you know, putting all the data in a CRM system doesn't count, right? Do you have some sort of strategy in place to organize everything you're learning about your customers? And if you do, is that strategy making it so that the data is available to all your channels, right? And that's the last question. Do your channels leverage this data? Do your channel leverage these insights? Have you created a system where everybody goes to the same repository or data source and makes decisions for their channel, but from the same set of data? You know, cross-channel marketing is not taking the same creative and putting it in 7 places, right? It's being relevant in that moment. And you can only do that if you're working from real-time data and the same data. And if you're doing all these things, and if you feel good about these answers, then your organization is truly data ready. Thank you.